member of the Joint Economic Committee and one of the leaders. Not at this time. At this time, I would like to yield 3 minutes to one of our new leaders on the Joint Economic Committee, the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Mulvaney.
The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, when I travel my district, I've tried to figure out a way to explain to people and to myself how to make sense out of these trillions of dollars. And I do it this way. I put it in numbers that I can understand. I tell folks to assume that you're a family who brings home $46,000 a year. And you sit down at the beginning of the year to do your budget. And when you add up all of the things that you spend money on, you're spending $78,000. And then I asked them, see, when you're doing that, and you're making $46,000, you're spending $78,000, I want you to realize that the Visa bill in the drawer is $281,000. And that's where we are as a nation. And I tell them, as we try and figure out a way to save money, I remind that the first thing that we did in this Congress was we cut $35 million from our own budgets. To lead by example, we cut our own budgets in this House by $35 million. And in that world where you're spending $46,000, and you're spending you're making 46, you're spending 78, you're trying to find $32,000 of savings in your household, that $35 million represents 70 cents. That's how big the numbers are. And I think folks back home have started to grasp it. I certainly have started to grasp it, but I do get some good questions when I give that presentation on the road. Some folks will ask me, they say, well, you know, if I was in that position at my household, not only would I try and cut expenditures, but I'd also try out and go get another job. I'd try to make a little bit more money. And I said, you know, that's a really good point, and that's what most families would do. With government, it's different. With government, the only chance they have to get that additional job, to get more money to come in, is to raise taxes. And when I tell them, when they ask me, so why don't we just raise taxes? I say, because it simply doesn't work. It simply does not work. It has never worked. This graph shows the top marginal tax rates going back to the 1950s. For those of you who are around or have studied the area, the top marginal rates in the 50s were actually above 90%. The top marginal income tax rate in the 1950s was above 90%. And the government was still only able to take from the economy about 20% of the economy. 18.5% is the average over the course of the last 50 years. So even when tax rates were as high as 90%, the government took only about 19% of the economy out in taxes. That number has stayed bizarrely stable over the course of the last 50 years. We've lowered marginal tax rates, we've raised marginal tax rates, yet the government only takes out 18, 19, at the most 20%. Raising taxes does not bring in more money to the government over the long haul. It may for a short period of time, it may for a year or two. But the world doesn't work on a static model. The world works on a dynamic model. And when you raise taxes, the economy grows slower, and eventually we get back to this 19% average. By the way, I made this presentation in a debate to a former member of the Clinton administration. And the moderator, after I had mentioned that we've never been able to get more than 19% out of the economy, turned to that member of the administration and said, "Is that true? How do you respond to that?" And the member of the Clinton administration said, you know, he's absolutely right. We've not been able to figure out a way to do it in the United States of America, even with high top marginal tax rates, but they do it in Europe. They do it in Europe. In Europe, the governments can get 30, 40, even 50% of the economy away from the private sector, away from people, and put it in the pockets of the government. Thank you.
Is it recognized for 1 minute?
And I put it to you, Madam Chairwoman, that that's what this debate is really about. That's what this debate is really about. Are we going to maintain the American system, or are we trying to move towards a European system? And I tell you that that's really what this fight is all about. And the budget that we're here defending tonight as members of the Joint Economic Committee is the budget that defends the American system, that defends a system that says the government really should only take 18 or 19% away from the private sector, that that's enough, that we don't want to be Europe, where people pay VAT taxes and people pay additional, much higher rates of taxation. The government takes 30, 40, or 50%. And what the opposition is offering is a European-style model. So I simply ask my friends on both sides to consider what kind of country we want to be. Do we want to continue on as the America that we've known for years, or do we want to become Europe? And I suggest, Madam Chair, that the former is the better course of action. Thank you very much. I yield back the balance of my time.